Hi, I'm Devin Alexander. Today, we're going to make a simple and healthy meal that's sure to impress your guest. Yes, you can entertain and still keep a healthy lifestyle. And believe me, your friends will be so impressed they won't believe their taste buds. Coming up next. Don't you love those fancy salads you get at restaurants? They make you feel like $1,000,000. Well, now you can impress your own guests at home using some healthy and simple ingredients. First up, a mixed green salad with raspberry vinaigrette. I'm just working here on my lettuce. You want to make sure your lettuce is always dry. That's so important, or you're never going to get that nice, crispy, finished salad. Now, you can use lettuce right out of a bag. You know, you can buy it pre-washed and everything, set to go, or you can do it yourself, depending if you have more time or more money. Okay, now next I'm going to grab a couple more ingredients for my salad. I need some yogurt and some goat cheese. I'm going to start by making a vinaigrette. Get some ingredients here. I always use a whisk to mix up salads. Okay, start with a little bit of yogurt. Okay, just a bit there. And then I add some mustard. Now, at this point, if you've been watching a lot, you probably think that I'm a big mustard fan. Actually, I'm not, but it just gives a lot of good thickness to a lot of recipes. But in the end of this, you'll never even be able to taste the mustard. Mix those together. Add a little raspberry vinegar. Gives it a nice tang. That'll be the predominant flavor here. And then I'm going to add some honey, because you never want the vinegar to be too strong or bitter. Get that in there. So good. And then I whisk in the olive oil. You want to make sure these ingredients are all mixed up so you can get a nice creamy dressing. So very slowly with the olive oil. I use extra virgin olive oil. Get one with a strong flavor so you'll have an oily flavor in the end. You know, if you're one of those people who buys salad dressings all the time and you're constantly disappointed because you're trying to eat healthy, then you're like me. Because I swear, I'll go and I'll try to buy one and I'll think, oh, raspberry vinaigrette, that sounds so great. And it's a light version, and I try it, and then I'm like, ugh, that one's not so good. Then I buy another one, throw that one away, and by the time I'm finished, I've spent, what, $20? Who needs that? You can whip this up in minutes yourself. And then you know exactly what's in it. Now, I only added 2 tablespoons of olive oil here. And this one even has a little more olive oil than most of my dressings, but we are impressing our guests, so we're going to indulge just a tiny bit more. I'd probably usually only add about 1 tablespoon. Okay, there we go. And then I'm just going to season that with a bit of salt and pepper. Now, this is a recipe I've used for a lot of my Sunday dinner parties. Years ago, I was working on a movie, and there was this guy who's like, I have to leave early because he was having a dinner party. And I said, why aren't I invited? He said that only people from the East Coast could come. Well, at the time, I was living in Los Angeles, so I can see why he might have thought I wasn't from the East Coast, but I am from the East Coast. When he found that out, he invited me. So every Sunday, it was so cool. It was me and this whole group of basically frat boys who would hang out and have dinner that my friend Mike would cook. Well, then he got too busy with work, so I decided that I was going to start doing them myself. So I would have my friends over, and we would test out all sorts of recipes, and I still do them today, and I just love it. Then I just pour the dressing over, and I'm not going to use all of it. I'm just going to use a couple tablespoons. That's all you need. Very lightly. Okay. Toss it together. And I'll put in a little bit of the goat cheese right now. I use goat cheese. I crumble it very finely, as finely as I can. If you put it in the freezer first, that'll really help you out in the crumbling if you don't buy it pre-crumbled. Toss that together, and then we'll just save a little bit for the top. As I was saying, if you put it in the freezer, it'll get nice and hard, and then you can crumble it, and it won't stick to your hands. Alrighty. Just put a little bit on the top, and it's the perfect salad. Coming up next, I'm going to show you how to make a pork tenderloin so good and juicy, you're absolutely going to die. Stay tuned. Welcome back. I'm Devin Alexander. We just made a refreshing mixed baby green salad. So that means we're ready for our main course, a hoisin-glazed pork tenderloin. I'm going to start by making a rub for the pork. This has an Asian flair to it. I have some cayenne here, a little bit of black pepper. This is nice and spicy, one of my favorites. That's why I like it so much. We have some Chinese 5-spice powder, a little bit of salt, and a little bit of garlic. Get rid of all of those. I'm just going to mix these together with my fingers, which I love to do. Why dirty all the forks, right? And then I'm going to take my pork tenderloin. Now, pork tenderloin is the leanest cut of meat. You don't want to use a different cut on this. This has less than 4 grams of fat for a 4-ounce serving, which is what you should be eating for 1 serving, of course. I'm just going to put a little bit of sesame oil on here. To get the exact amounts, you can go to discoveryhealth.com. Rub that all over that. You don't need a ton of oil. This dish right here, you're going to save a good 20 grams of fat, or close to it, for a 4-ounce serving over a traditional pork roast. Okay, now that my hands are all nice and messy the way I like them, I'm just gonna rub the spice mixture into the tenderloin. You wanna get all sides of this. You can just pour this over. This is gonna help tenderize the meat, since it is a lean cut and you don't have a lot of fat. But this is so good. This dish will totally impress your mother-in-law. You wanna get her on your good side? That's how you do it. All right, I'm just gonna wash off my hands. You never wanna keep meat on your hands. Okay, now I'm just gonna cover this and put it in the foil for about 15 minutes. That way the flavors are really gonna go into the meat. We can just cover it loosely. And I have one in here already made up that I'm going to pull out. And before you put this on the grill, you should let it hang out for a couple minutes. So I'm gonna do that while I make a glaze for this. I don't want to put the glaze directly on the pork until after I've seared it, because otherwise it'll burn, since there's sugar in my glaze, which you'll see in a second. Okay, I have some hoisin sauce here. Now this might be something that you've seen in a lot of Asian restaurants if you get Chinese food and things. It's very common on chicken with lettuce cups. It's the sauce you put over top. You know, it's really thick and rich. You just don't want to use too much because, as I said, it does have sugar in it. So, whisk together the hoisin and garlic, and then I put a little chili garlic sauce in. And this is where you play around and personalize this recipe. I usually recommend about a teaspoon, but for me, I put in a little bit more. So I like it a lot. Just gonna mix that together. And then I'm gonna sear my pork as promised. So get my tongs here. I'm gonna throw this on my very hot grill and just sear it about a minute per side. You wanna get those grill marks great on there. I've actually served this to so many people at my house, and it's always a huge hit. People always think it's a fatty cut because it becomes so moist and tender, but it's not. It's healthy. And that's why it's such a great thing. You know, the boss is coming over, serve this. You'll see I'm throwing this together so quickly too. And then I'm gonna make you a wasabi mashed potato to go with it. Once you see the marks there, you can turn it over immediately. You want to rotate it on all sides. You don't want to just have a couple sides. The idea here is to lock in the juices, get it nice and seared in there. Keep them in there. It's looking good there. See our beautiful grill marks here. And that end isn't getting completely done, so just make sure that hits the grill too. And a little bit right there. Now, you never want to put the meat back on the same plate, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that plate with the raw meat. And I'm going to put this directly on my baking sheet here. Now, I don't know if you've seen these yet, but I have this great silicone brush. You know how when you use those other pastry brushes sometimes it almost looks like there's hair in your food at the end? Not good. So this, it doesn't shed, and it works so perfectly. Get that all brushed on all sides here. That is looking great. Now I'm just gonna throw this in my oven. And I have another one right here that's looking perfect. Now, if you're not sure how to cook your pork, you can always use a meat thermometer. They make great ones these days. This is almost ready, but I'm just going to tent it with foil. You never want to cut into your meat immediately. Little piece here. Just put it there loosely. It'll keep the juice inside. Up next, wasabi smashed potatoes that will leave your guests thinking you had your party catered. Don't go away. Sure, you could go crazy buying all sorts of tools and toys to stock your kitchen to cook healthy. But really, you don't need that many. There's only a few tools that I think are really essential. One of them, a fine cheese shredder. When you're shredding cheese that you want to melt, you always want to shred it finely, because that way you need less to spread it over more surface area and you'll still get some in every bite. Plus, it melts better. Then you can use an assortment of non-stick baking pans and sheets. You don't want your food to stick to the pans, and you certainly don't want to put all this extra fat and oil on there. I mean, why do you want to waste calories there? And then you need a meat mallet. You want to tenderize leaner cuts of meats so that they're nice and juicy. You don't have to eat a lot. Plus, by pounding meats flat, it often seems like you have a bigger portion than you actually do. I love that. Now, if you don't have a lot of non-stick pans, you can always buy silicone liners. They have the flat ones that you can put on your cookie sheets or roasting pans, or these little ones that work for muffins or cupcakes. Healthy, of course. Now, I definitely urge you to get a cooking scale. It's so hard to figure out how much you're eating if you just eyeball it. And again, why waste calories in places you don't really want them? Over time, your portions get bigger and bigger and bigger, if you're like me, if you don't actually have a scale. So, check it out every once in a while. And then, of course, you need some non-stick skillets. One or two, totally fine, just a couple different sizes. Because, again, you don't want to use a lot of oil, and you don't want your food to stick or not look good. Presentation's so important, don't you think? And then, of course, you always need a handy olive oil sprayer, because you just want a light mist so that your food doesn't stick, even if you use non-stick pans. And sometimes, if you want food that seems fried but isn't, just bake it and then give it just a light mist. Perfect for that great crunchy fried food taste. Welcome back. We just finished a moist and juicy hoisin-glazed pork tenderloin for our main dish. So what could be better than wasabi smashed potatoes to add some spice to our amazingly tasty menu? I'm working here on the potatoes right now, just getting them all chopped up. Have some more in my pan already, so I'm going to throw these, add these. And then just cover them with about 2 inches of water. Just want them to be in the water so that they boil evenly. Then I'm going to add a little bit of salt to the water. Just a touch, about a teaspoon's good. And then I'm going to turn on my burner. I'm just going to let these boil for about 20 minutes. And I'm going to work on the sauce for the potatoes. Actually, I don't know if you'd actually call it a sauce. Call it the cream in the potatoes. So I'm going to mix some fat-free half and half here. I love fat-free half and half. I sometimes call it my new best friend. It's so great because it gives you that thick, rich creaminess of full-fat cream without all the fat, which I love. Then I'm going to add some light butter, just 2 tablespoons in this whole recipe that serves 4. Light butter only has about 5-6 grams of fat per tablespoon. And then I'm going to add some wasabi. Now, I don't know if you've seen wasabi before. It's green. And you find it in sushi bars, that green little glob on there. Just be careful you don't go too hot with that one. I usually put about ½ tablespoon in mine, maybe a little bit more because I like spicy food, but definitely don't start with more than a ½ tablespoon. I'm just going to pop this mixture in my microwave because when my potatoes are done, get that on. I certainly do not want the hot potatoes to get cold with the liquid mixture that's been in the refrigerator. So again, the wasabi, you've seen it in sushi bars, it's that green glob, and it's spicy. Now, you can buy it in powder form where you just mix it with water, or you can buy it in paste form. If you can find the paste, I much prefer that. Okay, looks like this is done. We just want it to get a little bit warm. It doesn't have to be hot or anything. Okay. Just don't shock the cold potatoes. And then I have some potatoes over here. As I was saying, you buy that in the paste form, and then you can find it in the international section of most major grocery stores. Okay, add our potatoes to our bowl. Had them done already. And then just add our hot liquid here. And then I'm just going to smash them with my potato masher here. I don't want them completely mashed, though. These are smashed, remember. Okay, get them nice chunks of potatoes in there. You know, it's so nice, the creaminess and then a little bit of chunkiness. That's looking pretty good. Now today, my market had these brown skin potatoes, but when you do the red ones, that's even more special to impress your guests. So I try to do that if I'm having company. No company today, just me. Okay, that in there. See how you can see those skins in there? Love when it's like that. Now potatoes always, always, always need salt. So we're gonna put a little bit. But again, you wanna watch your sodium. Now you're probably wondering how on earth I think it's okay to eat carbs. Well, I've lost 55 pounds. I've tried every diet on the planet before I finally figured out that just tweaking recipes and cooking a little differently is definitely the way to go. And I've kept off the weight for over 15 years, so I like to think that I'm an expert. Now I'm just gonna finish these off with some chives. You could use parsley here too. Just looks so pretty, gives it that green color. For these recipes and more, you can always go to discoveryhealth.com. Up next, dinner is ready and your guests won't believe how good and healthy the menu is. But then again, we can just keep that between you and me. Don't go away. When I get back from the grocery store with bags of snacks or cereals, I don't want to overeat them. So I always read the sides of the bag and then I portion them out according to serving size. Then I put these bags back into the original packages because these keep them fresher. So put them back in. You don't want your food to go stale. Also, when you do this, it sometimes might be okay to eat two. But this way you know that you're not going to be sitting in front of the television with this whole big bag. Instead, you make the decision, do I want another bag of baked chips? And sometimes I decide I do, but at least that way I know I'm eating it. Now, after I cook a big dinner, if I'm eating alone, I have all these leftovers. Well, instead of just leaving them like this, where I'd pick and pick and pick, I portion them out. 2 of these is 1 portion, so I just put this in a container, and then I know I won't overeat next time. This is a great way to make sure you also don't overeat. Entertaining can be fun, simple, and healthy too. Today, we made a mixed green salad using fresh ingredients. I tossed it in my own raspberry vinaigrette, and if you wanted to add even more color to this, you could always throw on some fresh raspberries or some red onion. It would be so pretty and even more elegant. You know, this whole meal is such a great idea if you want to impress a first date or maybe even appreciate the spouse you already have. Okay, next up was our hoisin-glazed pork tenderloin, where you save 96 calories and 19 grams of fat over a traditional pork roast. I used an extra lean pork tenderloin, so you can cut tons of fat right there, and it's so moist and juicy, as you can see. And then, of course, the perfect side dish, wasabi mashed potatoes. I'm gonna give these a try. Nice and creamy and buttery. I just used a little bit of light butter in there, but still you'd never know it because you do have that buttery taste and that's all you need, right? And remember, just because food tastes great doesn't mean it can't be good for you. I'm Devin Alexander and I'll see you next time.